Hi everybody, it is Dean Z speaking to you from my basement. Today I want to talk to you about waitlist season because as I am recording this, we at Michigan are about to send out our first round of waitlist invitations. I know a couple schools have already done so, a couple more will be doing so in the next couple weeks. So this is a new thing for many applicants to have to grapple with and think about how they want to proceed. So I wanted to give you some, context and behind the scenes information that might help you. First of all, I want to talk about how many people are going to be getting waitlist invitations this year. I think everybody knows at this point in the cycle that apps are up for the 2021 incoming class. And particularly at the high end of the LSAT range, which is where a lot of our pool comes from, those numbers are particularly elevated. So that means that Michigan and our peer schools have more applicants who are really high quality than we typically have. It's always an issue, trying to figure out who to admit versus who to waitlist when you have an extremely talented pool, and it's going to be more of an issue this year than ever before. So I suspect there will be many people getting waitlist invitations from schools where last year they might have gotten in. I know that is certainly the case for us. So first, let's talk about how should you feel about getting a waitlist offer. I know I got waitlisted at a school. I should clarify that doesn't mean that I got into every other school. I got waitlisted at one school and denied at one school, and I only applied to 5 schools. It was a different time. People applied to fewer schools back in my day. Anyway, so I got waitlisted, and I felt irritated, honestly, and also like sort of insecure about it, like this school doesn't think I'm smart enough to be there. None of those were, I now know, correct messages to draw from the waitlist invitation. We waitlist people only if we think they would be great additions to the class. If we don't think you could do the work at Michigan, if we don't think we want you, we don't waitlist you. It is a lot of work on our end managing the waitlist, at least the way we handle it at Michigan. So there's an incentive there to be rational in my waitlisting decisions and not to just waitlist everybody. I should be humble about acknowledging that I only really know what goes on at Michigan, but I do feel really confident that no one should feel like, oh, this school thinks I'm a giant dummy if they're getting a waitlist invitation. That is definitely not the case. It's fine to feel irritated. I get that. Don't really have anything to say about that. I get it. But don't feel bad about yourself. And I would also say, particularly this year, let me explain why we're going to be waitlisting more people. As I said, the pool is bigger and more talented than in the typical year, but we're also, what we do with our waitlist is very dependent on what other schools do with their waitlist. So I'm being very cautious about the number of offers I'm making this year. Let's say in a normal year, applicant A would have applied to 10 schools, would get in to 8, denied by 1, waitlisted by 1. This year, that same exact applicant might get into 4, waitlisted at 5, and denied by 1, or something like that. So this applicant A will have 4 schools to choose among instead of the 8 they would have had in some hypothetical other year. So that means, just law of numbers, if they have 4 schools to choose among, each school there will get 25%, will have a 25% chance of having applicant A choose them, as opposed to a 12.5% chance of being chosen if applicant A had 8 schools to choose among. Obviously, that's not completely true because some schools, will have an 80% chance, and some schools will have a 2% chance in a given month, but you get the point, right? For every offer you get, the chance that you will choose any given school diminishes, right? So that means if I normally make 1,000 offers and I get 300 people accepting them, now if I were to make 1,000 offers, I would be more likely to get 500 or 600 people accepting them, maybe, hypothetically, right? It's just hard to know, but I will have a higher yield on each offer than I normally would. Maybe that'll be like a 1% higher yield. Maybe that'll be a 10% higher yield. I don't know, but I'm trying to control for that, and so are all my peer schools, by making fewer offers at the outset and then seeing what shakes out at the time where people put in their deposits, and we see what does the class look like now, and then we fix it using the wait list. In cooking, an early lesson I learned, because I am a big lover of salt, if you add a lot of salt, you can't take it out. You are stuck with a salty dish. If you add less salt, then you can add it later if you need more. Same thing with putting a class together. If I have 500 people accept the offer, there's nothing I can do to get that down to 300. But if I get 250 deposits, I can get it up to 300 through using the waitlist. So that is the approach I am taking this year, and I assume that my peer schools are doing the same thing. So all of that is to say, more than ever, don't feel overly discouraged about being waitlisted. I get it. It's you'd rather be admitted right away and have a lot of time to think about it. I understand. So I'm not denying those feelings, but I'm saying just, don't take it to heart is, I guess, the point I want to make here. All right, now let's talk about timing. You get a waitlist offer, it's February. What do you have to expect? First of all, schools are probably not going to be making any waitlist decisions until after their initial deposit deadline, which for most schools, at least of Michigan's peers, April 30th, May 1st is the usual deadline. Some schools have an April 1st deadline or an April 15th deadline, so sometime in April. After that deadline passes and we count on all our fingers and toes to see how many deposits we got, then we'll have a better sense of, like, can we admit 10 people from the wait list, 50 people? What is it going to be? There's work that you can be doing now if you're on a wait list, but not a ton. Like, you have to plan on just being chill about this for another 2.5 months or so. And that takes me to another point that is related to timing. One of the real frustrations with a wait list is knowing that we're feeling like you are not in control, right? The school may or may not call you up, and you just have not a lot of way to control that. And it can be frustrating. But sometimes you do have a lot of control. It is up to you when to pull the plug. So again, I mentioned that I was waitlisted. I called the school in question and I said, thanks, what does this mean? And they said, we won't be making any decisions about the wait list for a while. And in theory, we could choose to call somebody on the very last day, during orientation, and ask you to come. And they were very nice about it. But I hung up and I thought, I am not someone who temperamentally can wait and join a school at the last minute. I was just did not sound good to me. So I wrote them a nice little letter and said, thank you, but no thank you. I will not participate in your wait list. And I have never regretted that. It was a really good decision for me. But a lot of people are less neurotic than I am and can live with the uncertainty. But remember, it is up to you. You could send an email on the day where you're like, enough of this, no more. And then you won't have to fear being bothered with it. So to that, in that regard, I would say try to be realistic. Think about what your comfort level is. Think about, often people will say, yes, I'm willing to accept an offer at the last minute. And then in reality, they're not. And I 100% understand that. But, do think about what your comfort level is with this. And then, think about it in advance so you can figure out when you want to pull the plug and maintain that control. Speaking of control, let's talk about what will happen if you do get called and get an offer for a waitlist. How much time will you have? It varies. At Michigan, it is our practice. We like to give 2 weeks, if at all possible. We like to give 2 weeks, and we like to tell you even at the time we're making the offer, we often will be able to say, and here's what we can do for you in terms of financial aid. So you have as much information as we can possibly give you, and you get 2 weeks to think about it. Not all schools take that approach. And as we go through the season, it may not be possible for any school to give you 2 weeks because they're on a timeline too. But I do think it is important to think about what it means when a school gives you an exploding offer, and maybe you know everything you need to know about that school, and you can roll with that, and that's fine. But I think this is a big decision, and I think a school that won't give you the courtesy of giving you some time to think about it, that's a warning signal, and I think that's something for you to think about. And I also think if you feel like they're not giving you enough time, you should feel emboldened, empowered to say, I need a little more time. And I don't think you should hesitate to do that. This is a giant decision, and you're the only one who's going to be going to law school for yourself. So, take it seriously and don't let anyone else push you around and make you feel like you don't have the time to put a little bit of thought into this. Likewise, I know that there are some schools that tell you at the outset, if you participate in our waitlist process, you are de facto agreeing to accept an offer if we make it. I think there's so much imbalance of power between an institution and an individual on the waitlist. I find that a very dubious assertion. If a child of mine got a waitlist offer like that, I would say that I would not feel compelled to honor it. I'm be really frank about that. I believe that it is very important for people to honor the commitments they make, particularly in the field of law, but in general, but particularly in the field of law. But I think this is maybe an exception. I think that's a completely unreasonable approach to take. That's just my 2 cents. What can you do if you really want to get in to an institution that you're on the wait list? You should be in touch. You should be in appropriate amounts of touch. You shouldn't be calling every day. You shouldn't be emailing every day. But you should, every couple weeks, reach out, reaffirm your interest, send any updates that you have, ask if there's any questions that they have about you that you can answer, something like that. Like, just make sure that they know that this is something you really want, because I can tell you that when we are making offers from the wait list, what we want is to be able to make them to people who really want them. So you can advocate for yourself appropriately and thereby increase your chances of getting a call. But again, keep it appropriate. Don't overload the admissions office, because they are managing a number of different things, and you should be respectful of the demands on their time too, I would say. You don't want to stick out as someone who is too demanding in this process. And I think that is all I have on that topic. And now I want to talk about word usage. Actually, I have 2 word usage points. One, I once said in another episode something about like people sometimes miswriting Ann Arbor as Ann Harbor, and how that always makes me a little sad. Why I had an even better typo in an application recently where someone was meant to refer to me as Dean Z, but wrote Dead Z. So I would just say try to avoid that. That made me feel weird for a couple minutes. But my real word usage point is the words anxious versus eager. Often those 2 things are conflated. People will say, I'm so anxious to see the incoming class, when what they really mean is I'm so eager, like I'm looking forward to it. It's complicated because anxiety and eagerness are emotions that have some overlap. Like if you were drawing a Venn diagram, there'd be some overlap there. But, anxious has the tinge, denotes or so that rather connotes anxiety, a negative feeling, whereas eager is all positive feeling. So think, when you're saying anxious, do you really mean anxious or do you mean eager? And I think it's, a little bit more precise in many circumstances to say eager. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. We'd love to hear your feedback, and any ideas you have for other episodes, please leave comments below or send us an email to law.jd.admissions@umich.edu, and please put vlog in the subject line. Thank you, as always, to Dustin Johnston, the brains behind the operation. But also, I realize I should also be thanking Alice Chu here, who is our assistant director in admissions, who always has great ideas and just is very, very helpful to this process. So thank you, Alice. And I wish I'd thought of saying thank you for about 10 episodes prior to this. So, all right, wherever you go, go blue.